I'll be joined up here by the state commissioners who are here and County Executive polling cars. First with me today, we basically have transferred the bulk of the state government from Albany to Western New York. We have General Pat Murphy from the National Guard, who has been here for several days, Major Soretto from the New York State Police, Commissioner Rowan DeStito, who's the Office of General Services, OGS Commissioner, is here. Commissioner Joseph Martens from DEC is here. Commissioner Joan McDonald, Department of Transportation, is here and has been here. Audrey Zibelman, who's the chair of the Public Service Commission, is here, who can be very helpful with any utility issues or utility problems, power outages, etc. Bill Davis from Homeland Security is here. Kevin Wisely from the Onondaga County of Emergency Services is here with us, who is also helping us out in this exercise. Commissioner Richard Ball, who is the Agriculture Commissioner, will be here to help any farms that may need assistance after they're being damaged, and Dr. Zucker, the Health Commissioner, to make sure there are no health-related concerns that come up. You are in a warehouse. We call it a stockpile. This is a stockpile facility that has been in operation, was set up several months ago as part of a statewide stockpile operation. Let me give you a little background if I can. My administration, the past 4 years, we've seen an unprecedented number of crises and emergencies that the state government has had to deal with. My father was governor for 12 years, 1982 to 1994. In the 12 years that my father was governor, there were about 11 major disasters, federally declared disasters, okay? About 11 in 12 years. I'm sorry, there were 5 in 12 years. During my past 4 years, there have been 11. So I don't want to get into a political debate about climate change, but suffice it to say, there is a frequency of extreme weather like we have never seen before. And frankly, the state was ill-equipped to handle these crises when we first started dealing with them. Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Irene, Hurricane Lee, storms upstate, snowfall, flooding, and we just were not prepared in terms of personnel, in terms of training, and in terms of material. If you have to go looking for pumps in the middle of a flood, it's too late. If you have to start looking for high axle vehicles when the rain starts, it's too late. So we became much more sophisticated in preparation for emergencies. Part of that was training, part of that was new personnel, and part of that was stockpiling the resources in regional centers across the state. So this stockpile existed. What we have done over the past several days is we've been moving equipment from throughout the state to this stockpile to have the material that we might need to respond not just to the snow emergency, but to what could be a potential flooding emergency following. Now, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't say exactly whether or not there will be a flooding problem. We can't say what kind of structure collapses we may have, but we anticipate both to some extent. We know the snow situation that we're dealing with. We're well aware of that. Add on top of that a period of high rain that will make the snow heavy. There's a potential for more building collapses that could compromise the structural integrity of homes and commercial buildings. And if the temperature goes up as quickly as they're forecasting, there's a potential for significant flooding. Hence, all available pumps of all different sizes from throughout the state we've brought here. The electric generators, because one of the things that happens in a flooding situation is the power often goes out. Power goes out, pumps don't operate unless they're gas-generated pumps. So much of the material from throughout the state that we've used in the past has been brought here. We learned many of these lessons the hard way. Hurricane Sandy in the downstate area, we needed hundreds of pumps, literally, and we needed them overnight. And we learned the hard way how difficult it is to put that type of material together to the quantity that we needed it. So we feel good about the level of preparation, not just in terms of resources, but also in terms of personnel. We now have over 500 National Guard who are here. And the National Guard, unfortunately, has also had more experience than they would like in dealing with these situations. The National Guard is the main workforce for the state. So storms Irene, storms Lee, Mohawk Valley storms, Sandy, it's been the National Guard. I recognize too many faces of the National Guard out here over the past few days. So they have been through this a couple of 3 times already, and they are extraordinary at it. Likewise, the state police, we have park police, we have every agency mobilized. And the commissioners themselves will be here for the duration, and literally the most critical agencies in state government have been relocated to Western New York. So we'll have not just the personnel, but also the management personnel will be on site. Hopefully we need none of this. And hopefully this was just an elaborate exercise in logistics that we will have done, and then we will deconstruct, and everything will go back, and people will say, boy, the governor really made us waste our time bringing everything out there just to bring it all back. I hope that happens. I hope the weather change is gradual. I hope we don't have a flooding problem. I hope we don't have a building collapse problem. And I hope it was just a lot of long nights for nothing. That's my prayer. But our motto is prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and we are preparing for the worst. As we enter what we call phase 2 of this battle with Mother Nature. And phase 2 is the flooding part, etc. I feel good about where we are on phase 1. Snow removal, it's not perfect. There are still areas that need help, and we're still out there working with those areas that need help. But again, I applaud all the local officials. I applaud County Executive Mark Polenkars and his team, who have done an extraordinary job. Mayor Brown in the city, the same thing. They have really performed, I think, at a higher level than anyone could have imagined. And we had a number of deaths, and each one is tragic. But I really believe, having seen what I've seen in the past, this could have been much, much worse. And emergency operations and emergency management, to me, is one of the most critical roles that government plays. Because it's very simple. If emergency management works well, you save lives. And if you don't, people die. It is binary. There's no politics, there's no spin to this. If the team is prepared and you know what you're doing, you can save human life. Otherwise, more people will die. And I think, given the past few days, the team really stepped up, and I believe it's not an overstatement or dramatization to say the good work saved people's lives. Before I turn it over to the county executive, just in summary, the type of material we have here, 28 boats are here already. Another 26 boats are on the thruway. These are swift water rescue boats, as well as boats that would be more suitable for an urban environment. The swift water rescue boats come with a trained swift water rescue team. 375 pumps of different sizes, depending on the application. 176,600 sandbags, sandbaggers, which actually fill the sandbags, 30 light towers, and an additional 30 pumps are on their way up from Depew by DEC. So the material's here, the personnel is here. Again, we hope for the best, we prepare for the worst. I want to thank all the employees and public servants who have been involved in this massive, massive deployment over many, many days. And fatigue is starting to set in. We're on day 4, day 5 for many people. We have more to go. But just stay strong. We'll know what we're looking at over the next 48 hours. We'll have a good sense of what the flooding situation will be, and then we'll take it from there. With that, let me turn it over to County Executive Mark Poloncarz.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Governor. As I said right from the start, when we knew that the storm was one that we could not handle on our own, and I called the governor asking for deployment of the National Guard, he said, whatever it is you need, and this is a perfect example. Really, when you walk around here, you almost got to say, wow, it's amazing the amount of resources that are available. We are ready, there is no doubt about it, to handle if a flood should occur. On behalf of myself, and I know the Undersheriff Mark Whipperman, who's with me, Erie County is prepared as well. The Sheriff's Department is activating its boats, its rescue teams. The volunteer fire companies in Erie County, as well as the City of Buffalo and City of Lackawanna, are activating their swiftwater rapid boat teams, which we do have. The Erie County Division of Sewerage Management has 8 districts. They're coordinating their supplies in 3 different staging points, moving pumps and generators to the areas of the greatest potential need. Truthfully, I agree with the governor. I hope this is nothing more than an exercise in logistics. And with that, I want to commend Commissioner DeStito and her team for getting these supplies here. And if it's nothing more than an exercise in logistics, so be it. If we need to, because there's actual flooding issues, then so be it. We are there and we're ready to deal with this. We do know from actually traveling around the community today that some of the areas that had 7 feet of snow appear now to have 6 feet of snow. So the water is disappearing, whether it's actually melting in the ground or sublimating in the air. The water is going somewhere. But we haven't heard of any issues directly related to flooding as of yet, so that's a good sign. But as you can see, we are prepared here, and I specifically want to thank the governor and his staff and the National Guard for all that they're doing, because no one can say that we did not take this portion of this storm seriously. We knew early on that there was a potential for flooding. We were advised of a potential for flooding, and I can say if there are floods in this community, we have the resources at our disposal to handle it. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, and I know the Undersheriff, I just want to thank you, sir, for your concern and your commitment to this region. It's made a difference. Thanks.
Thank you. One last housekeeping note on State Route 190. Exits 1 to 5 are still closed because of local traffic bans. So on 190, 1 to 5 are closed, and on the thruway, 57A is still closed. Any questions for myself or the county executive? Or anyone else? Left speechless. Not quite.
What's next?
Waiting. Patience. We are still deploying resources from across the state and personnel from across the state. We have a window as the weather changes here, and we're waiting to see, we're watching the forecast, but we're waiting to see how much rain we get. We're waiting to see what the temperature actually is, how fast it warms, how fast it melts, and what kind of flooding that produces. But we will be busy for the next 2 days. We are still moving personnel and we're still moving equipment.
Have you ever had this level of preparation before an event that occurred before?
No. For 2 reasons, Bob. One, we had more notice on this one, especially for this second phase, if you will. On the first phase, the snowfall, no one had an idea that it was going to be that much snow that fast. Snow coming down at the rate of about 5 inches per hour. No one had an idea. The Weather Service was off. by the way, which is why I said in my State of the State last year, we're putting in our own weather detection system. Because when the weather detection is wrong, it's not just an annoyance anymore because you dressed them properly. When the weather detection system is off, you don't know a storm is coming, you didn't have a chance to prepare, and it can make a significant difference, and people can actually die. So we didn't have notice of the snow coming down the way it did, and the information we had was wrong. On the potential flooding, we've been talking about this for 2-3 days, right? So we had notice of 2-3 days to mobilize, which was an advantage. And also for us, Bob, this is, you want to say emergency deployment number 12 in 4 years, and you learn something each time. And I believe each time we've done it a little better. But this is the best, most extensive preparation. It's the first time we put in this stockpile system. It's the first time we're actually using one of the stockpiles.
What can the public be doing in preparation for this possible flooding?
They can be, first, preparations in their own home. Preparations in their own home, food, flashlights, etc. Second, to the extent you can without injuring yourself, removing the snow from overhangs and a rooftop without injuring yourself. Yesterday we saw a lot of people standing on a rooftop with a roof rake clearing the roof. I mean, that is dangerous, dangerous business. I don't care what kind of shape you're in, that's dangerous for Superman. But to the extent you can do that, to the extent you can clear the gutters, which is what's most important, and to the extent you can clear the drains in front of your home or around your home. One of the things that happens is the drains get clogged with snow and ice and leaves, and the water doesn't go down the drains. So those things like that would be the best. If you have any sense that the structure of the building is compromised, before a roof collapses, you will often hear sounds. You'll hear creaking and you'll hear groaning. If you hear anything like that, call the officials immediately and get out of the house.
Governor, you mentioned, that you didn't have accurate information leading into the storm from NOAA. Can you kind of expound on that? How might you have gotten better information?
The Weather Service, which by the way, does the best job they can do with the information they have, they make a forecast. They say, we think the snow will start at 6 a.m. and we think it will start at 1 to 2 inches per hour. And you prepare for that. Turns out the storm starts 8 hours earlier at double the rate they said it was going to start. We had situations with Hurricane Irene and Lee, Storm Irene and Lee, whatever you want to call it, that it was supposed to hit New York City. We deploy all the state resources to New York City. Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, all down to New York City. This was up until the day before. This was a storm they were following right up the eastern seaboard. And for days, you had that graphic on the TV screen, and it was going to hit New York City. 6 hours before, it was going to hit New York City. It turns, theoretically, at the last minute. It doesn't hit New York City. It clobbers central New York and the Mohawk Valley and the North Country. We had just deployed everything to New York City. We had virtually no equipment in central New York and the North Country because we redeployed to New York City. We had to do a 180, take all the equipment from New York City, rush up to central New York and the North Country. It makes a difference. We're now putting in a weather system where it will be our own weather system with literally monitors, hundreds of monitors throughout the state that will detect changes in the weather, amount of water in streams, stream flow, so you know where the rain is coming and where the floods are coming, because you'll see, it's all linked, you'll see the level of the streams rising and the speed rising, so you'll know where you're going to have flooding. Please, Mark.
In regards to this specific storm, we had received information from the National Weather Service on, starting over last weekend, and specifically on Monday, that the snow would start approximately 5 o'clock in the city and the north towns and move down slowly through the south at rates of 1 to 2 inches, at most 3 inches per hour, and continue to move until it reached the snow belt and the ski areas. So we deployed our highway crews in Erie County in the primary areas where they were needed, which was in the ski areas. So all of our highway divisions were at the ready, and our highway crews in the south towns were salting as they were elsewhere. What ended up happening is the snow started at 5 o'clock, it started moving down, and it stopped. And it went from 1 to 2 inches of snow an hour to 3 to 5 inches an hour. The areas that we thought were going to get the sufficient snow, or the significant snow, excuse me, were the areas in the ski country. And we were even talking on Monday night about how the ski country was very excited about receiving all this additional snow, and they might be able to open up. They never got snow until Wednesday night and Thursday morning at the end of the snow portion of the storm. So what happened was the forecast from the National Weather Service predicted the snow would start at a particular time in the city and move down south, and it started that trek, and then it stopped. And then in about a 10 to 12 mile band, as we were saying, the knife that entered the center of Erie County from South Buffalo, Cheektowaga, Lancaster, Marilla, Elma to Batavia, and then down about 10 miles, cutting across through Lackawanna, Lancaster, West Seneca, Cheektowaga, Hamburg, and Evans, just got snow itself for basically a 2.5 day period, sometimes at a rate of 3 to 5 inches. So we knew a storm was coming. We were prepared for it. Actually, much of the media was at our barns on Monday when we talked about how we were preparing for it. We were deploying our forces. We were salting the roads. But based on the estimates that we had, we were ready. I don't think anyone could have expected 3 to 5 inches of snow an hour, was ready for it stopping where it did, and that's what ended up happening. And of course, I'd say this Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, we felt pretty good about the roads. I was up all Monday night and Tuesday. We were good. We're getting good reports of the county roads being kept open and the state roads being kept open. And then people started to drive in the snow band. Those who were outside of or I should say, those who were inside the snow band weren't driving because they couldn't get out. They had about 2 feet of snow in their driveway. There were driving bans in those communities. What we saw were people from the north towns, and we advised them, please not do it. Just tried to come into Cheektowaga, Lancaster, and Elma. And people who were south of the snow band, especially on Route 5 and Route 20, who once the thruway was closed, used Route 5 and Route 20 to drive into Hamburg and Evans, got stuck. And once they got stuck, the whole system backed up. We couldn't get out there and plow these necessary main roads. So we were ready. We just ended up with a forecast that was different than the actual results.
When we are done, we will have, I believe, the most sophisticated weather detection system of any state in the country. Again, not just because it's a convenience, but because it's about safety. You're saying national site selectors for a business? See, I think they're going to see the exact opposite. I think they're going to say, boy, that Buffalo can deal with anything. I want to move to Buffalo because they got hit with a tremendous snowstorm of biblical proportions, and they handled it with aplomb and ease. I don't know if you can handle a snowstorm with aplomb, actually, but something like that.
Governor, has this been a learning moment in the state of New York?
I don't think it's been a learning moment for the professionals. We've been through this before. I think you probably learn a little bit more every episode. But I think at the end of the day, and we're not at the end of the day yet, right? And it's not over until it's over. And maybe we get lucky with the flooding, but maybe we don't. And flooding can be terrible. I mean, really terrible. Flooding can be worse than the snow. No doubt about it. And if you ask me to pick, the snow is a much easier situation than flooding. There's much less damage. But assuming we get through the flooding stage okay, I think it will be a learning experience for all of us that says, you know, we can do this, we can handle this. We come together, we're community, we're neighbors, and together, acting as a community, there's nothing we can't do. And I think that would be right. I think the courage of Buffalonians has been awesome. I think the generosity of Buffalonians has been awesome. And people coming out, helping other people. I mean, there was a whole rainbow behind all of this, which was about the people and their courage and their volunteerism. One last housekeeping point I've mentioned before, for the local governments and for individuals, any improvements, any costs, please keep records of costs that you're expending as you go along. It's very hard to recreate. If we wind up qualifying for federal reimbursement, which is good news, bad news. On some levels, you don't want to sustain that much damage. That allows you to qualify. But if we do have that much damage, we want to make sure we qualify. You need to have the records, otherwise we can't get the reimbursement. And if we have the records, it'll help us meet the threshold of about $27 million or $23 million. It's going to be close, and it literally is going to depend on the records. It's not a guesstimate when FEMA comes in. When FEMA comes in, they want the receipts. They want the accounting. And I've gone through this with them several times. They don't include all costs as eligible costs. So you had to document everything that you spent. They then disallow a certain amount of it, and they see if you make the threshold. County Executive, any other points?
Just to add on that point, we've heard some criticism of the D-Land system, which is the system that's used in Erie County and New York State. It's a wonderful system. It works. The system is also there to help document for a FEMA response, because we show if you bought 7 generators, you put that in the system as a ticket for the community that they identify they bought 7 generators, so we know that it's at the ready, and you also have a price value for it. So the system, the D-Land system, which has worked exceptionally well for the municipalities who have been using it, is a great system also to help us track things afterwards in the event we do seek and are eligible for FEMA assistance.
Okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you.